There is a moment in every life when you decide to rise, to stand taller than your fear, to speak louder than your doubt, to chase the vision that sets your soul on fire. This is that moment, and here we walk it together with stories that awaken, voices that inspire, and truths that set you free. This is Positive Talk with Kevin McDonald, where hope has a voice, and that voice is yours. And welcome to the show, everybody. My name is Kevin, and Brachelle is right there. Brachelle, how are you? You're looking special in your background, as always.
Thanks, Kevin. It's a good day, another good day. And I'm very excited for this episode because we got a lot to talk about.
We do indeed. Would you like to introduce our guest?
Yes, I'd love to. We have Linda Lysakowski here with us today, and she's written 40 books. She is now working on extending some of those into a second little doohickey she's got going on. And she has been through a lot of life. She understands that there's highs and there's those lows we have to experience to launch us again in a different direction. And so, welcome, Linda. How are you?
I am just fine. How are you?
We're excited.
We are awesome. And I was looking at your information. Have you really trained either between 50 and 100,000 people to be in the nonprofit sector?
Right. Well, I've spoken at the Association of Fundraising Professionals at their international conferences and their hemispheric conference in Mexico. And a lot of that is online. I do a lot of online training too, but I have done a lot in person too. So usually when I speak to an audience, there may be 10 people, there may be 100 people, there may be 200 people, there may be more. So it all depends. But I love speaking to nonprofit professionals because it's, after all the years of experience that I've had, I feel like I have a lot to share. And I also mentor some people in this field, and I love doing that too.
So I noticed on your website, it says that if you are a professional and you are tired of the job that you have and would like to do something, a little different and to give back to society, which is what nonprofits are designed to do, you need to talk to Linda or read one of her books or do both. Would that be true?
Right. That's fine. I would hope they would read some of my books. I'm working now on second editions, as Brachelle said. And one of the books I'm doing a second edition of is one of the very first books I published, and it's called Fundraising as a Career. What? Are you crazy? And the title, I have to tell you how the title came about. I was in the banking profession for 11 years, and I really didn't enjoy banking. The only job in banking that I really liked for a little over a year, I was a private banker, and I loved that. It was like being a major gift officer. I got to work with the high value people that at that time had $100,000 or more with the bank, and that was a lot of money then because that's all FDIC would insure. And I loved that because I got out to meet the people in their homes, sometimes in their offices, and got to work with them that way. But I really didn't enjoy banking that much. And I have to tell you, kind of a weird story, but one day the executive vice president of the bank called me and invited me out for breakfast the next morning. And I thought, either I'm in trouble or he wants something. So I knew it was one of those two. And it turned out he wanted something. He was new in our town. I lived in Pennsylvania at the time. And he said, Alvernia University contacted me. They wanted help with their annual business appeal. They wanted me to be a team leader. And he said, I just moved here. I don't know the businesses. He said, you're active with the Chamber of Commerce. You know all the businesses in town. And you go to school there. I was going to school as an adult. And when he said that, I knew what was coming. He said, so I told him you would be the team leader for the bank. And I said, okay. So I went to the university and met with the development people. And I went, oh my gosh, people actually get paid to do fundraising. I never knew this was a career. And I went back to work And I opened up my file drawer and I realized I had more files in there for my volunteer activities that I was already involved with the bank than I had for my work. And I said, I think it's time to make a job change. So right before I was due to graduate at the age of 45, I guess I got my undergraduate degree. And I wrote a letter to the president of the university. I said, I've really enjoyed my 7 years at school here. It took me 7 years because I was working full time, raising five or six children. I had 6 altogether, but 2 of them are deceased now. But I thought, this is something I really want to do. I don't enjoy banking that much. I really want to get involved. And if I can go to work for my university, that's even better. So I wrote to the president and said, I really would like to think about, coming to work for Alvernia University. And she said, she called me and she said, well, I'd like your resume and let's talk about it. And 2 weeks later, I was assistant vice president for institutional advancement. So
Yeah.
I kind of learned on the job, but I've never looked back. And people literally said to me, are you crazy leaving a good career in banking to go work for a nonprofit institution? You must be crazy. And I never thought I was crazy. And I'm still convinced I made the right decision many, many years later.
Well, for heaven's sake, training 100,000 people, writing 40 books, being the way that you are, I would say you made the right decision. Rochelle, what do you think?
Yeah, on top of being a mom and having to take care of yourself and all of the things, it's dedication, and you wouldn't have been able to make the changes and the impact that you have if you wouldn't have done that. So I think that's much more rewarding, and you're way richer in your heart because you did make that decision.
Absolutely. I've never looked back. And then after 5 years working for a university and a museum, I realized that there were a lot of small nonprofits that couldn't afford to pay the big national consulting firms. And I thought, they really need help just getting started, setting up a development office, because I've been through that experience where I had to set up a development office. So I decided to go into consulting after only 5 years in the business of working for nonprofits. But I've never looked back on it. I've worked with such wonderful clients all over the world, really. I mean, not all over the world, but I've worked in Egypt and Mexico and Canada. And my career has gotten me to travel a lot more and enjoy that beautiful nature, like the beautiful mountains I'm looking at right now. So it's been a really rewarding career. And I've always believed in lifelong learning. In fact, at the age of 82, I got my master's degree in theological studies from the Franciscan School of Theology at University of San Diego. And people were all saying to me, what are you going to do with a master's degree at your age? And I said, I'm not going to do anything. I'm taking this because I want to learn. And I think everybody should be going to school at the age. My school just told me they're starting a doctorate program. And I said, Linda, don't even look at that. Don't even dare look at that. You can't afford another student loan at this age.
Never stop learning.
That's my theory. And that's why I do so much teaching. But you were asking me about, how many people I've trained. But I really believe in lifelong learning. And I have on my one website, I have 18 online courses. So people can jump online and take a course on almost any aspect of fundraising.
You don't ever sleep, do you?
I do. I sleep quite well. I go to bed very early most nights.
Well, I go to bed early too, but it's generally in my recliner, and then I get up and go to bed after that. If
I
you know
that
what I mean.
feeling, yeah.
And so tell us about all of the nonprofits that you've worked with and some of the causes that you've helped get off the ground and to really help humanity heal.
Well, like I said, when I first started this, I wanted to work with all the small organizations, but I did throughout my career work with some big organizations. And the way I got to Egypt was I did some work with the American University in Cairo. That was a wonderful experience. I just, fell in love with Egypt. I've always loved Egypt anyway. To start with, I always been an Egyptophile, I guess, but I got to work with some universities, but I also worked with a lot of small organizations. Back in the early 1990s, AIDS was a big issue, and I worked with several AIDS organizations. And oh gosh, I've worked with small libraries, community libraries. I've worked with churches. I've worked with synagogues. I've worked with just all different religions, and that really got me inspired to start writing spiritual books. So I also, in addition to the fundraising books, I've written about 5 spiritual books, and I'm working on another one right now. So I think that's part of what I do is everything is spiritual in my book. The mountains are spiritual. Just meeting people is a spiritual experience. And but I've worked with all sorts of different organizations. I can't even begin to list them all. I've worked with one that I really stands out in my mind there's a couple that stand out in my mind, but one was No Means No Worldwide. It's a group to stop sexual assault against women. I've worked with a lot of domestic violence groups and groups like that really kind of stir your heart and get you motivated. But this No Means No works with young girls to teach them how to say no, and also young boys to teach them what it means when a woman says no or a girl says no. And that was a rewarding one. And last night I was on a webinar I'm very interested in care for creation. That's one of my big pet things right now. And I was fortunate enough to work with a woman named Maya Van Rossum. You should get her on your show sometime. She's amazing. But when I was working with her, I was living in Pennsylvania, and she was a Delaware River keeper. And now she has started a movement and written a book called The Green Amendment. And she's trying to get an amendment passed in every state in this country that would say it's in our Constitution that we can't do anything that harms the environment. And she's got 3 states now that have already passed this into their Constitution. 23 more are working on it. And after her webinar last night, I suspect every state in the country that was on that webinar is going to be working on it. So that was a really exciting client to work with. I really believed in what they were doing. I've worked with a lot of environmental groups too.
I have to ask you, Linda, because there's a lot of people that have Rochelle being one, would love to go to Egypt. What's it like to stand at the base of the pyramids?
Amazing. And going inside the pyramids was even more amazing, because when I walked inside there, the thing that stood out to me was how vivid the colors were from these thousands of year-old paintings on the pyramid walls. And I thought, if you did something like that today, in 5 years, it would need to be repainted again because the paint doesn't last. Yep. But part of it is a desert climate. But it was just incredible. And I even rode a camel. I swore I wasn't going to. I had a business partner at the time, and she rode a camel. And I said, no, I'm not getting on that camel. They're big and they're scary. And finally, our guide said, Linda, come on, you can do this. You can get onto the camel. So I did. And I went all the way back from the pyramids back to where we started and on the camel. So I did it. But I loved the people. The people were extremely friendly and wonderful. We had a guide that we hired on our days off to take us to different places. And we got to really be friends with him. And he said, he had talked about his wife and kids. So we said, well, can we meet them? So we went out for dinner one night on his night off with his wife and kids. And it was just a really great experience. But everybody there was just wonderful to us. They were really, really a great group of people. And I'm still friends with some of the women I worked with. One of them moved to the U.S. and the other one, I believe, moved to Dubai. But I'm still friends with them on Facebook and communicate with them.
And I know we need to take a quick break, but I have to ask you, Linda, was the energy just different in Egypt?
I don't think so. I really am a firm believer that we're people of various cultures, religions, countries. We're much more alike than we are different. And I didn't find the culture that much different there. For me, it was just another
They're just
place
people.
to visit. And yeah, and they were, like I said, they were just people, and maybe they had a different culture, but we just really got along well.
I love that.
Well, you strike me as being somebody that can get along with just about everybody.
You're probably right.
So we need to take our quick break and we'll be right back. More with Linda.
Lysakowski.
You're supposed to say it, Kevin. I believe in you. You said it the first time.
I didn't want to massacre her name. So
Okay.
Lysakowski. I got it, I think. Okay. And Brishelle and I will be right back with more with Linda. And if you have a design or a thought about, I don't know, starting a nonprofit and giving back, we'll talk about that when we come back, because that I can't think of a better way to give back to humanity than to start a genuine, honest to goodness, real life nonprofit that can help people live a better life. We'll be right back and talk about it. Are you looking for a powerful way to grow your brand while making a real difference? Well, Positive Talk is the perfect platform to align your message with inspiration, hope, and meaningful conversations. By sponsoring Positive Talk, your brand will reach an engaged audience that values positivity and connection. People who want to support companies that share their values. Take this opportunity to showcase your business in a space that uplifts, inspires, and creates lasting impact. Don't wait. Email me, Kevin@kmmedia.pro today to learn how you can partner with us and spread positivity while growing your brand. And welcome back to Positive Talk. My name is Kevin, and right there is Brishelle. Brishelle, isn't it amazing the types of people that we get to talk about and talk to on this program?
Yeah, it kind of just leaves me speechless because we take for granted having each other. And really that's the whole point of life, is having each other, learning from experiences, doing things to better our world and helping each other. And Linda, I love that you're involved in nonprofits because they were a huge part of my life growing up. And if I start one someday, it's going to be something with the animals. and I have to ask you, was there what made you want to do this? What sparked the attention, or did you meet somebody, or how did it come into creation?
Well, I think it like I said, it started with that when I was a banker and I was asked to work on the business appeal for the university that I was attending. And I thought, man, this is really exciting. I got to work with alumni and businesses and all sorts of people, and it was really encouraging. And like I said, I really wanted to get into working in the nonprofit sector because I thought without the nonprofit sector, this would all fall on government, which it is kind of impossible to try to get the government to fund everything. So, and businesses are in business to make money. They're not in business to give it away, although I think most businesses are far more generous than we think they are. And they don't do it necessarily, I think, only for marketing purposes, making themselves look good. I really think that most businesses want their communities to be well educated and healthy and educated and enjoy the arts. And I think most businesses really are looking at building their communities and making their communities a better place for themselves, for their employees, for their customers or their clients. So I just think it's such a variety of organizations out there that can really help in so many different ways. And some of the organizations that I've worked with really motivate me. One of the things that you mentioned about starting a nonprofit, I think this is maybe where I could be of help, because I've worked with a lot of startup organizations, and I think I can say from my experience that many people start a nonprofit, maybe for sometimes the wrong motivations, but in most cases, I think they mean well, but they just don't know what it's all about. And they really have to spend some time when they want to start a nonprofit to make sure they have a strategic plan, that they know where they're going, what they want to do. And like you mentioned animals, I've worked with a couple of animal groups too. And one of them, I often think about it, was one of my first clients. It was a golden retriever rescue group. And there was a businessman who was the president of the board. And he was known to be a tough business person. You know, he didn't take anything from anybody. And I actually saw that man cry at a meeting over a dog. And I thought, man, you know, people won't believe this, but it's true. And those are the kind of things that keep you going. I said, oh my gosh, you know, here's this tough business person that was known in the community for being, you know, pretty hard-headed and tough. And I watched him cry over a golden retriever. And that kind of got me really excited, because I'm a cat lover, I have to
Me
tell
too.
you. But that really moved me a lot. And I've had such great experiences knowing that by enabling them to raise more money, they're able to serve more people and do more good in the community. So I really, if you're thinking about starting a nonprofit, I think one of the things that people really need to think about is who's going to be on your board of directors. And you've got to, the IRS says, oh, you need 3 people on your board. Well, 3 people is not a board. You need to really think ahead and say, okay, we eventually want to have a board of 15. How do we get there? Or 25. And I've worked with boards as large as 35 already. I've worked with boards as small as maybe 7. But you really, I think, need at least 15 people, because when you get a range of expertise and you want to get people who have different sets of contacts in the community, some business people, some philanthropists, some people who are great at volunteering. So I think a lot of organizations get started. And I had a friend who actually wanted to start a nonprofit, and she did start it. She paid for the IRS and got her designation as a 501c3, and then realized she was in over her head. And I tried to tell her all along, you need to think about, she had 3 people on the board because that's what she needed to get her 501c3. And she just didn't realize how important it is to get more people involved and get volunteers, get board members, and you need to have a paid staff. A couple of years ago, I don't know if you ever heard of or were familiar with Dan Pallotta, but he wrote a great book called Uncharitable, where he said fundraising has got to come out of the shadows. People are embarrassed to say we're paying a fundraiser. No, if you didn't have money, you're not going to run programs, because there's going to be no money to run those programs. So the fundraiser is just as important as the head of your programs is. And a lot of people there's a old saying in fundraising, no money, no mission. And that's really true. You really need to raise money. It's not something you should be ashamed of or embarrassed about. It's not a 4-letter word. It's not, but I always say, the other F word that nobody wants to say is fundraising.
That's right. And by the way, Linda, and I want to circle back to this because your first book was, so what are you, crazy? And I want to come back to that. But before we go there, there's a gentleman who has started an organization in Kenya. He is one of our favorite people. He interacts on virtually every show, and he has done so, and he calls you Madame Linda. Michelle?
Hi, Samuel. Hi to your team. And he says, greetings from Kibera's Restoring Hope Center based in Kibera slums, Nairobi, Kenya. Brother Kevin McDonald, Sister Brichelle, and guest Madam Linda Lysakowski receive greetings from the slums of Nairobi, Kenya. We are watching you live with my team. Thank you for hosting different professionals and inspirational guests. We appreciate the highlight and weekly feeding program here in the Restoring Hope Center to the world. Our goal is no child goes to bed hungry. God bless you, brother, and Kevin, sis. And we love him. It's things like this that he would be somebody that is, he had the plan and he set it up and he gave himself that time, and things kind of fall in line a little more when you align them, but also when you align with the right people, which is what you were just mentioning.
Right.
He now has a team and helps feed all these children and their parents. So it's
that's
powerful.
Wonderful. Yeah.
It's in the middle of the night in Kenya, and they're sitting in there.
What's he doing up?
There are 20 or more of them watching the show as it's being done, and we are committed to helping him. And if anybody wants to help him, we will be an intermediary, because he has given us videos of the kids, and the kids that he feeds are coming up with just anything that they can carry food in to eat, and it can be a Tupperware container that they used to have Cool Whip on the side, and it can be different stuff like that, and we want to help them. And number one, there is a need. The slum that he's talking about has 1.5 million people living there.
Wow.
And so we're committed to helping him, and we've got a program that we are going to be introducing in the next week or two or three, perhaps in the new year, to try and help get some money to them so that he can make his program bigger. Because his story is he started out as a street kid in the slums and just trying to make everyday work. And so many of the people in the nonprofit sector, Linda, have that fire in their heart to really make a difference, don't they?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's just incredible to me, the people that I've met throughout my career, and I'm still meeting more, how energizing they are to me, just talking to these people. And I would love to chat more with, I didn't catch his first name.
Samuel is his
Samuel,
name.
okay.
And when we're done with the show, I'll send you his stuff on Facebook and his links.
Oh.
So we can pull that, and I'll show you some pictures. But he's amazing.
And by the way, Linda, I don't want you I don't want you to undersell yourself. You would be considered a legend in your business. Would that be true, young lady?
Well, some people have said that, yes.
Then it must be true.
A lot of books, and just getting the ACFRE. There's only about a little over 100 of us worldwide that have that designation, the Advanced Certified Fundraising Executive. That in itself is an achievement that usually sets people apart just by going through that whole process. You have to meet certain criteria, and then you take a written exam, and then you put together, and then you take an oral exam conducted by other ACFREs. But they also have a mentoring program, and I have mentored other people through both the CFRE process, which is the first step, and then the ACFRE process. And it's just good mentoring people because you see them grow.
And I got to tell you that over in Kenya right now, Madame Linda is getting a standing ovation.
That's what I was afraid of. But I would love to talk with him, because I think it's just I've only been to Africa, to Egypt. That's the only place I've been to in Africa, but I have many friends over there that I communicate with, and I'm on LinkedIn and things like that with. So,
they don't have it anymore, but if they still had a Rolodex, I would love to see your Rolodex.
Well, that's why I have a phone. Here's my Rolodex, my phone.
And Rochelle, any thoughts? Because we need to go to break, but something before we go to break.
Yeah, Linda, I'm amazed at the experiences that you've gotten in such, like, maybe, for somebody as young as me, it could seem like a long time, but does it feel like it's been that long, or do you still feel there's so much more?
And sometimes people say to me, well, so I had a Lyft driver pick me up one day, and they look at the gray hair, and he says, oh, so you're retired? I said, no. And they said, oh, you're not? And I said, no, I'm not going to retire. I'm dying with my boots on, because it's such a thrilling job that I don't really want to retire ever. So as long as my mind stays active, I'm going to stay active too.
And I want to ask you on top of that one, sorry, Kevin, will we come back from if you have a nonprofit, or if you've ever gone that route and did your own thing, and what exactly it was. So Kevin, go ahead and take us to break, and then we'll find out.
We'll be right back.
You're listening to Brushwood Media Network, the best in syndicated talk, news, and entertainment shows.
Are you looking for your daily dose of inspiration? Stay connected to all your favorite shows, music, and news with the Brushwood Media Network app. From Positive Talk Radio to Greatest Vibes Unplugged and so many more uplifting voices around the world, everything you need is right in one place. It's easy to use, too. Always available and designed to keep you inspired 24 hours a day. Go to brushwoodmedianetwork.com and download the app, and you will always have Brushwood Media available on your smartphone. Download it now and make inspiration and music and conversation part of your everyday. And welcome back to Positive Talk. My name is Kevin, and Rochelle is right there. By the way, Linda, we also do a music show called Greatest Vibes Unplugged on Brushwood Media Network, and that's 9 a.m. Monday through Friday, and they tell me that Rochelle reminds them of Cher.
Or Sonny and Cher recreated. Modern day.
Sure.
Yes, indeed. So, and we're talking with Linda Lysakowski, something like that.
You got it. Just close.
And go ahead, Rochelle. Ask the question that you went into the break with.
Yes, Linda. Have you ever had your own nonprofit, and what was it?
I have not. I have never really had the desire to start my own nonprofit because there are a lot of nonprofits in this country, and sometimes people say, well, why are there so many? They all do the same thing. So that's why I think it's really critical if you're starting a new nonprofit to really sit down and say, well, what are we doing that's different? What are we doing that nobody else is doing, or we can do it better than anybody else is doing it? And you really need to figure out, every organization is unique, and you need to figure out what's unique about your nonprofit if you're going to start one. And don't just start one just for the heck of starting it, because unless you have a real good cause and you know there's a need for what you're doing in the community. Sometimes I had one woman that one time came to me and said she wanted to start 4 nonprofits. And I said, I was ready to say to her, are you crazy? I didn't quite say it that way. But really, I said, you don't have to start 4 new profits. Why don't you just start one nonprofit and have 4 different programs? And she was like, oh, I could do that? I said, yes, you can do that. Because I said, you're going to have to get 4 boards of directors, get 4 501c3 designations, raise money for 4 organizations and staff 4 organizations. So I think sometimes people don't really understand what starting a non, and it also doesn't mean that you have to be, really pay your staff peanuts, so to speak, because nonprofit people work just as hard as anybody else does, and they should be paid a fair salary. And that book that I mentioned by Dan Plata on charitable, he talks about that. He said, there's no reason to pay substandard wages because you're a nonprofit. And it doesn't mean that you have to operate in the red either, because basically what a nonprofit makes it different from a for-profit is that no one person or group of people can benefit from the profits. It doesn't mean you operate in the red all the time. It means that the money that you raise goes back into your program.
And Linda, one of the things that I wanted to touch bases with you on is I've worked with some folks that started a nonprofit, and they did it for, and you mentioned it earlier, for the wrong reasons. Mm-hmm. Either it was the tax break, or they could get government assistance to pay people substandard wages that they could then use for their own personal assistances and stuff like that. As somebody who wants to give to a nonprofit, how do you protect yourself and give to the right nonprofit? Because there's some great ones out there that are doing some wonderful work, but how do you know?
Right. Well, it actually is very easy in this day and age, because every nonprofit has to fill out a 990 form, which is like what we fill out when we do our personal income taxes. And there's an easy form for really small nonprofits. But those 990 forms are all available online. So if you're a donor and you want to see who you're giving to, you can go to guidestar.org and look up their 990 form. And if they haven't filled a 990 form, they won't be a nonprofit very long, because the IRS will revoke their status if they don't complete that 990 form. But it's public knowledge, because it is a publicly held organization. Really, it's for the benefit of the public. So you can go to GuideStar and look at those 990 forms. And most states have regulations to do fundraising. And one of those regulations is you have to file your 990 with the state as well. So some of the states, you can go to them and get the 990 form, but it's just easy. And you can, at 2:00 in the morning in your pajamas or on your recliner chair, or wherever you are, you can go and look up the 990 forms of this nonprofit. And it will show where their sources of funding come from, and it shows salaries of some of the, not every employee's salary, but it does show some of the salaries that they pay and what they're doing for their programs. And one tip for the nonprofits is, a lot of people look at their 990 form as, well, the accountant handles all that and we don't have to get involved. You need to get involved in filling out your 990, because you can also use it as a public relations tool, knowing that everybody in the world can look at it at any time, any place, as long as they have a computer. So use that 990 form to talk about your program. And there is this place on there to say, what kind of programs are you running and how many people you serve. And I've had clients that use that to talk about awards they've received from the community and things like that. That really makes your organization look good. So it's a PR tool in addition to being a required document from the IRS.
And so what's that site again?
Guidestar.org.
Guidestar.org. So if you want to find out and do some research on a nonprofit you're considering giving money to, go there. And so I'm assuming, Linda, that if they don't have a 990 on file, then they probably are not a really good place for you to give your money to.
Right. I mean, unless they're really new. I mean, some of the new ones if they just started this year, they won't have a 990 form to complete. And there are some good startup organizations like your friend in Kenya. Of course, I don't know what the regulations are in Kenya, but most governments have some kind of reporting system in place.
And by the way, another member of their team over there is commenting in. So this is from the Restoring Hope Center. And go ahead, Burchelle.
Yes, thanks Positive Talk Radio Show for hosting this inspirational guest, Linda Lysakowski. We are here listening keenly and proud of her. Thanks for great work. The slums are tuned in. And it is true too that you don't necessarily want to judge something prematurely, right? When it's something that is so new, and you can kind of tell by the people working with whoever started it what kind of space and energy it holds, right?
Right. And for people like your friend in Kenya, if they want to raise money in the United States, they should really file a 501c3 for a 501c3 here. You don't have to be. It's a little more complicated if you're outside the country, but you don't have to be in the United States, based in the United States, to raise money here. So that's something that they and other people from out the world, I know you have listeners all over the world, so but a lot of people don't want to do that. They just want to raise money in the country that they're in. But
well, and what document is that if they want to do that?
It's a 501c3 is the most usual. There are other designations. There's 501c6s, which are usually like professional organizations, like your Chamber of Commerce is probably a 501c6 because they're not charitable, but they are some tax benefits for membership organizations and groups like that. So, but the most common one for charities is 501c3.
So that would mean if as an example, Samwell were to file that and was approved here, then that becomes a tax deductible donation for the people that give the money.
In the U.S., right.
And that can be a major selling point all by itself.
Right, especially for the wealthier people that make major gifts, because the average American doesn't even itemize their deductions because there's minimum standard. I'm not an accountant or attorney, by the way. I want to make that clear. I'm not giving anybody legal or accounting advice. I better make that statement. But, I think a lot of times people give money and they don't give enough away in a year to itemize it. So for a lot of people, that tax deduction doesn't really make a tax benefit, but it does make people feel like, well, if this group is a 501c3, then the government approved them and they're legitimate. And so they'll give it for that reason, not so much because of the tax break that they're going to get.
Now, you would be one to talk about this, and because you would know, are there any radio companies, broadcasting companies that, other than like PBS, I know they are, but other ones that have a nonprofit status?
I don't know about that for sure, but most like local stations might be affiliated with PBS or NPR or something like that. So there are some that I'm sure that are tax deductible nonprofits, organizations.
Interesting. Rochelle?
Yeah. All these things going through my head. And I'm excited talking about this stuff because it's an energy exchange. That's what me and Kevin kind of talk about a lot of times with anything when it comes to money or time or the things that we value the most. But that doesn't it make you feel more full as a person to be involved doing something that is going further for a longer period of time rather than having the instant gratification and being able to teach people that? I bet there's been a few that probably just took off right off the bat. But also to teach people you got to give it time.
Right. I think that's what sometimes gets people frustrated. Like my friend that I mentioned, she only gave it a couple months and then said, this is just too much for me. I can't do it. But so you do need to think it through. But I want to kind of go back on that tax deductible thing because, years ago, I forget who originally designed this, but there was a psychology of philanthropy study done, and tax benefits were like the last thing on the list that motivated people to give. The main thing that motivates anybody to give to a charitable organization is they believe in its mission. So having a clear stated mission statement and a vision statement, because they believe in what you're doing, the mission, but they also believe in what's your vision. Like your friend in Kenya, I think I saw when you put that up there, it was no child will go to bed hungry. That's a vision, that no child is going to go to bed hungry. And that's what excites people to give, the mission and the vision. They don't get excited about, I can deduct this or I can't. I'll bet you he's got a bunch of people that are giving him money from the U.S. that can't deduct it or don't deduct it because they don't itemize. But they give because they believe in the mission of what he's doing, and they believe in the vision of no child going to bed hungry. And every country in the world ought to have that as their vision, that no child goes to bed hungry, in my opinion.
Well, I've been told, and that there's a country in the world, by the way, Linda, that is a very wealthy country, and they have, I think it's, Rochelle, correct me if I'm wrong, I think it's called the United States of I think that's what it's called.
I know where you're going with this.
I think I do too.
And they're a very wealthy country, yet we have got 40 million children that are going to bed hungry in this country.
Exactly.
And we need to fix that, don't we, Linda?
It's just, I can't believe it when I think about what kids are going through in the richest, probably one of the richest countries in the world, if not the richest, I don't know. But it's just sad when you think about that, not only kids, but people are going to bed hungry too, adults. But the kids are even more of a heartbreak. But when you think about, how some people in this country are treated, it's really sad. So there's a lot of people starting nonprofits to try to overcome some of this stuff, because it's just not right. Every country should think about, are their people well fed? Are they well educated? Are they, taken care of? Are they being abused in any way? So
what happened to take care of the people?
Yeah, right.
It's not we the people, it's we the money.
Right, you got that right. Unfortunately, I think you're right. It needs to be we the people.
We have these meetings that we do sometimes, and we had a gal, and she's going to be on the show, I promise. And she works in the foster care system, and she was telling us some less than favorable things that are going on in the foster care system. And I mentioned this to her, and she agreed with it. I'd love your opinion. I said, the United States incarceration rate is one of the highest in the world, if not the highest. And a lot of those people come from the foster care system because they age out at 18 and then they're on their own without any support. They have no parents. They have no siblings. They're just out there by themselves. And then they have to find a way to make a living, and sometimes they resort to doing illegal things, and then they end up in prison. And I'm thinking that if we started from the ground up, from when kids are just children, and we take care of everybody that's here, and get them the education that they need, and all of those things, that we could probably pay for it all by lowering the incarceration rate. What do you think?
I agree. I'm involved with the Innocence Project, and the other thing is there's so many people that are incarcerated that are innocent. And I know the old joke that nobody's guilty in prison. They all say they're innocent, but really, truly, there are a lot of people, and it depends, unfortunately, it depends a lot on your color, your race, your ethnicity, your background. If you can't afford to hire a good lawyer, off you go. And when I see people being executed and then later on they find out through DNA they were innocent, that's a murder. I mean, we're murdering people. And one of the groups that I worked with, a number of groups quite a few years ago, there was a grant given for mentoring children of prisoners. And it was one of the most rewarding groups that I've worked with. I worked with an organization in Detroit and several other there were different groups throughout. One was in Maryland, I think. One was in Virginia. One was in New Jersey. But they were trying to provide some sense of parenting for these kids who had a parent in prison. And I was really amazed by that. And I think we need to put more money into things like that, because those kids are pretty much abandoned, not by anything they did or anything the parent even did sometimes, if the parent is innocent. And even if the parent is guilty, they're still a human being. I'm sorry to say. But,
well, and some of the things that we're putting people in prison for, like I live in the state of Washington. She lives in Utah, which is next to Colorado. 20 years ago, if you had a certain amount of pot or silly smoke in your possession, then you could go to jail for a period of time.
Right, exactly.
But that still is happening in this country in some states. And I think that's an incredible waste of talent and stuff.
Yeah,
it definitely
time,
is.
money, all sorts of things. And Kevin, we need to take our last break. We blew through it.
I know,
but I want to be talking about the books a little more before we leave. So.
Yes, indeed. And there are only 40 of them, so that's going to take a couple hours.
We'll give you a break, though.
So, and I want to play this, and I'd love your opinion on this, Linda? Here's another point to ponder from Positive Talk Radio. What is the easiest thing to justify? It is a small transgression. The one no one will ever see, no one will ever know. The tiny exaggeration on the expense report. The extra minute you took on your lunch break. The packaging you tossed in the wrong recycle bin because it was closer. In those moments, the question isn't, will I get caught? The question is, will I know? It isn't about avoiding punishment. It's a silent agreement you make with yourself when you choose to do the right thing, to return the wallet, to fix the mistake, to respect the empty space. You aren't impressing the world. You're earning your own respect. That small choice, made entirely in private, is how you build a life you never have to look away from. The only audience that matters is you. And welcome back to Positive Talk. Rochelle is with me. She wrote that. She's beautiful, isn't she? Linda, what did you think of that?
That was just amazing. I congratulate you. I'm speechless that you wrote that. But I think that was one of the most powerful things I've ever seen. And you're so right. The only person that counts is you. And, that blew my mind.
Well,
get a copy of that.
I will send you. She is so talented. I will send you one. In your world, you must go to bed really feeling good about the contributions that you're making to everyday people that are trying to do the right thing, and you're helping them be successful at doing the right thing. Are you proud of yourself?
I guess I am. Nobody ever asked me that before, I don't think, but I think, and my role is so small, but just enabling them to do something that's as powerful. I sometimes think, boy, I wish I could do what my clients are doing, and I'd have the ability and energy to get out there and do all that. But if I can help them in some small way, and that's why I started writing books. It was because I love this profession so much. And the first book I actually published was called Recruiting and Training Fundraising Volunteers. So I think it was in 1994. And I thought, if I can help somebody and I can leave a legacy for this profession, that's really, because frankly, authors don't get rich unless you're J.K. Rowling or somebody like that. But most of us don't get rich on this. We write because we love to write, and we love because we want to leave a legacy in whatever way it can be. So that's what prompts me to keep writing and writing and writing. I just can't stop.
Linda, have you
quite
ever
a legacy.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Kevin.
No, I was just going to say that's good. You've created quite a legacy for yourself. And Rochelle, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, you're good. Linda, I'm wondering, have you ever had somebody that came to you and said, without you, I wouldn't have realized the power I had within myself, and I can see who I am more than I did before through what I'm doing?
I think so. And what really thrills me is when I go out and speak to a group and somebody says, oh, I have your book and it's like my Bible. I have it all dog-eared and it's written in. And I'm like, oh, wow, people really are reading this stuff.
Yeah.
Because, that's one thing that I like about speaking rather than writing, is because you hear from people and you're making a difference. Or with writing, sometimes if somebody responds to you, you don't know if they're reading it and what they're getting out of it. But I've had so many people come up and say to me, boy, I never thought of that until I read it in your book. And I've written things that are very precisely focused on one area, like strategic planning or creating a development plan. That was the second book I had published, was a development plan. And because I'm a big person for planning, everything has to be planned out. I mean, my phone, you wouldn't believe what I have in my calendars. Things like, don't forget to say your rosary today. I have everything. If I'm going to be going somewhere for lunch, that's in there. If I have to make a phone call, it's in there. Everything is calendared in my life, in my world.
And Rochelle, if somebody wants to, That's right. If somebody wants to get a hold of Linda, how do they do it, Brichelle?
Well, I do know if they visit learnwithlinda.online, they can find her books, blogs, fundraising, about what she does, and all those fun things. She's got all the courses that she mentioned. Linda, is there any other ways they can get in touch with you? And are your books all on Amazon and those fun things?
I think all of my books are on Amazon. Some of them I'm in the process of doing second editions, so there'll be new editions coming out. And if they want to email me directly, it's easy if you can spell Lysakowski. It's linda@lysakowski.com. But since my name is on the screen here, I guess they'll know how to spell it. And I was telling Kevin and Brichelle that my name is one of the rare Polish names. It sounds the way it looks. Most of them don't, but mine does. So it's not too bad. But linda@lysakowski.com if they want to email me directly. I'm also on Facebook and LinkedIn and a lot of different social medias. I have a YouTube channel where I do podcasts. So, and I actually have 2 different podcasts. I have one for fundraisers and nonprofits, but I also have another one, a spiritual one, because I've also written a number of spiritual books, and I've interviewed people from everything from shamans and Wiccans to Catholic priests and sisters and all sorts of different people of different. In fact, when I was looking at your clip, I thought I saw somebody that I interviewed on my podcast. I'm not sure, but did you interview Justin Bortz ever?
What's his name?
Justin Bortz.
Yes.
He wrote a book
Sounds
called
familiar.
Avatar, and I helped him with that book.
Oh, you see, you are an incredible human being, and I'm really, really pleased to have you on the show, because I've been fortunate enough to interview people like Neil Donald Walsh and Gary Zukav and just a ton of energy healers and shamans, and we had a shaman yesterday, as a matter of fact. I think yes,
well,
we did.
I have a couple podcasts that I've done with shamans. I have a good friend who's my shaman that I work with sometimes, and so I have a variety of different things. So if you're interested in spiritual books, they're also all on Amazon too.
You know, and at one time when I was doing the show in 2003, I had a Jewish priest, or a priest, a rabbi, and an almond on the same show. And,
well, I have to tell you a funny story. I have a rabbi friend who posted a picture on Facebook, and it said, a rabbi, a cowboy, and an actor or something walked into a bar, and he said, he just posted a picture. It said a rabbi, a cowboy, and an actor, I think. And I said, oh, walked into a bar? Usually those stories start with a rabbi, priest, and a minister walked into a bar or something.
Well, and Brichelle, I would love for you to ask her the question we always ask at the end of our shows before we go.
Here it comes.
Yes. Well, I want to get this last name out for anybody who's listening and maybe cannot see it. It's Linda Lysakowski, which is Lysakoww and then ski, SKI. You can look her up on social media platforms, get her book, contact her maybe if you have some questions. But Linda, thank you so much for your time. It's been an honor to have this conversation. We have to have you back to talk about all the things you just mentioned.
Like
and before we go, I'd love you to leave us with any message on your mind.
Oh my goodness. There's so many, there's always too much on my mind.
That's right, you write it down.
You know,
okay.
I guess I'm going to copy someone else's, I think it was a book written, but it was do what you love and the money will follow. And, you know, even if the money doesn't follow, still do what you love, because that's more important than the money to me. I think, you know, if you're doing something you really love and you really enjoy, just do it, and do it with all your heart and all your passion.
I couldn't have said that better myself. Because you have spent, you're 82 years young.
3.
I was going to give you credit.
You're younger.
I was going to give you a year's credit for good behavior, but but you've been doing this for a long time, and the wealth of knowledge that you have, that you've put into your books, that have now become a legacy for other people to read and to follow your journey. One day, many, many years from now, Brachelle's going to be 83, and she's going to have some really remarkable stories to tell. And this will be one of those. Don't you think, Brachelle?
Sincerely, I better start right now, or I might forget some things along the way.
Well, and speaking of which, our next guest on the next show, which we are doing, he is a memory expert, so that'll be good.
Good. I'm going to need that. Thank you, Linda. We love you so much, and can't wait to have you back.
I love you guys, and I haven't even met you in person yet, but someday we will.
Soon. We're gonna go do our little adventure.
All right.
And thank you, and contact Linda. Go to Linda.
learnwithlinda.online, and she has all the information there, also on Amazon. Thanks, everybody. We love you.
Good catch, Brachelle. Thank you for being part of Positive Talk with Kevin McDonald, where stories inspire and voices remind us of what truly matters. May today's conversation give you hope, courage, and a reason to keep moving forward. And just remember, till next time, be kind to one another, because each other's all we've got.